All right, so here we go. Embodiment meditation. So it's wonderful to begin by just noticing the breath. Just simply notice your breath and notice that it simply moves in and out. Just notice the breath. And it's such a kind of a strange thing to notice the breath and give it attention because it seems so mundane. It's not a beautiful ocean view or a gorgeous snowy day. It's just the breath. And there it is, moving in and out all day and all night. This breath is our life here in a physical body. And so noticing the breath moving in and out, just take a moment to notice any qualities about the breath. At this moment, is the breath feeling deep or shallow? Is it fast or slow? Just noticing any qualities about the breath. And now noticing that if the breath has shifted at all in any way since a few moments ago when you took the time to notice it. For most people, and even for me while performing this meditation, I'm experiencing it at the same time. Most of the time what happens is that the breath actually shifts and it makes itself more comfortable. The breath makes itself more comfortable and more at ease. It seems to get a more rhythmic pace. It seems to go a little bit deeper, especially if the person was just coming off of a busy morning or a busy day. Just the act of noticing the breath gives the breath an opportunity to shift. And when I first became aware of this, I was kind of blown away by the subtlety of the power. The power of noticing. I thought to myself, wow, if noticing the breath with a sense of gentle kindness, with no agenda, with a kind of attitude of nonchalance, or I always like to say the way you might notice like an infant or a puppy sleeping on the other side of the room. There's a sweetness of presence in your heart when you're noticing. And it's almost as though noticing from that kind of attitude, from that kind of perspective, is extremely powerful. And so I want you to just take note of that, because we live in a world that says we need to force and fix and change and make things happen and be really deliberate and strong in order to be powerful. And I want you to notice how the very act of noticing can shift your entire energy, can shift your entire vibration. The act of just simply noticing with a sense of appreciation without any agenda. Nothing to fix, nothing to figure out, nowhere to go, nothing to do. And then I want you to ask yourself from a place of wondering, just a place of wondering, what would it be like if I noticed my entire life from this gentle, kind, and loving perspective? What would it be like if I looked at the person in the mirror from this gentle, kind, and loving perspective without any agenda? Relatedness without agenda is such an honoring. I want you to imagine a moment when you've been around someone who simply likes you for who you are. And for some people that might be really hard to imagine, but for other people it will come up pretty easily. And I want you to just notice what you feel like in your body when you're around that person. You probably feel more at ease. You probably feel a little bit more comfortable, similar to the way that your breath adjusted itself when you simply noticed it with kindness. And so when we practice this kind of subtle power, when we practice this kind of gentle power, it can have a very, very profound influence on ourselves and the decisions we make. It can have a profound influence on our sense of self-worth and self-esteem. It can have a profound influence on the people we influence, on children, on other adults in our life. It can have a profound influence on our ability to create the things that we want in our lives because it increases our sense of self-love. Simply the act of noticing without agenda. So there's an image that keeps coming to my mind, and I want you to imagine, imagine a couple of children at home. Maybe it's after school and maybe their mom isn't home yet, and so they're playing, they're doing things. Maybe they're, I don't know, young enough to maybe need a babysitter, but old enough to maybe not need a babysitter. They're just at that age. And maybe mama's been out of the house for, I don't know, half an hour. Maybe she went to just go talk to the neighbor. Mama comes back in the house. And there's a different energy in the house. Mama's home. And there's a sense of, hopefully, if you had a good mom, if we're talking about a good, healthy, loving mom, there's a sense of safety. There's a sense of kindness. There's a sense of, I can relax now. I don't have to hold down the fort. Because little children will hold down the fort. You know what I mean? They'll hold down the fort. And so when they know mama's home, they relax. So what would that be like inside of you? What would it be like to feel that kind of sensation of relaxation inside yourself? Not by trying to do anything, not by even trying to relax, because it's the opposite. If we're like, you ever have a moment where you're stressed and someone says to you, relax, you're like, bug off. But you just sit down with a good friend and all of a sudden your body just like, oh, the muscles just release. That's the kind of energy you want to give yourself. And so simply noticing the breath and noticing the effect that noticing has, that's the power of an embodiment meditation. And so you can gently now notice the entire body with the same kind of gentle attitude. Most of the time in our culture, when people say notice the body, they're either usually trying to fix something or pick at something. And we're not doing that. We're saying just notice the body the way you'd notice a little puppy. And then notice any nuances about the body. Now I notice in my body, it adjusts itself again, just the way the breath did. And I think that there's a sense in the body of feeling heard. What do you feel like when you feel heard? There's a relief, isn't there? Ah, somebody gets it. Ah, somebody sees me. Just that in itself is a magical, profound, powerful act. That's why people who are manipulative purposely don't hear. They only hear what they want to hear. So self-love means listening. Self-love means saying, I'm just going to be with my body and I'm going to listen to it. I'm just going to be with my breath and I'm going to listen to it. Now, when you're being the body or you're being the breath and you're listening to it, you're the one listening. You're the one being. Well, what does that make you? That makes you larger than the body and larger than the breath. And so now we're talking about identity. We're talking about identity that's the you that's vast and infinite and grand. The you that's looking out for you from a much larger experience, from almost a mystery, how big it is. But if you've ever felt deep love for someone, you know how big love is. It's infinite and it can traverse universes. And so when you notice the breath and you notice the body, I want you to just begin to identify with the you who's noticing. And when you are identified with the you who's noticing, guess what? You're not identified with the changing body, with the changing thoughts and feelings, and with the changing breath. You can witness them. You can be with them. You can let them be, and you can love them. And you're the noticer. You are love itself. You are identified as love itself. And that is a power position. That is a position that keeps you in integrity with yourself, in connection with your knowing. It puts you in a position of taking right action, sometimes through logic and sometimes through intuition, but with clarity and with confidence. It also puts you in touch with a vision, and it also gives a sense of compassion and love toward the self, because that's the nature of that self. That is the nature of infinite intelligent love. It will protect you, and it will guide you, and it will nourish you. And so your job, your joy, is to learn to depend on it more fully and to dance with it more fully. It's not a dependency that is unhealthy. It is a dependency that says, I need you in order to experience my life in full, and you need me in order to experience life in the physical. And so we're going to do this dance together, and we're both going to listen, and we're both going to be conscious. It's a dance, and it's flourishing, and it's beautiful, and it's surrendering, and it's being awake. It is not dissociation. It is not flopping over. It is as powerful as noticing the breath and witnessing it shift. And it's also that easy. When we stand inside of a conviction that is based in love, we have superpower. And that is what we're doing here. We're aligning ourselves with a superpower of love. And look how far we've come simply from noticing the breath to identifying as the power of love. And so with that in mind, we have made ourselves ready to be more conscious, more present, more alive. We have established ourselves in a greater sense of well-being and presence. And so I'd like you to just bring yourself now more into the physical experience, noticing where you're sitting or laying, noticing what your body feels like, noticing what's around you, just simply noticing and becoming more aware of your physical reality right now, coming back into your body. Good stretch. And welcome home.